Happy New Year, Happy New Year, yeah. So, now that it's 2021, I guess I have to start delivering way better quality, but that probably ain't gonna happen for quite a while. So, for now, I'm afraid you're stuck with the same old thingy that we've been doing all this time. So, continuing the series today, we have the first episode for this year's continuation of Burps of Wisdom. And in today's lesson, boys and girls, is something that I quite often encounter when seeing people do things on YouTube. And it's one of those very unpopular things for me to say, which just puts my channel into into an even weirder position than it already is, with not having almost anyone. But even though that's the case, still I want to add a lot more reasons to the list of why you shouldn't watch this channel. So by popular request coming from no one but myself, I just want to tell you why leveling the frets the traditional or conventional way is the world's most moronic thing that you could ever do this type of activity. And if you're in any sort of geeky camp when it comes to guitars and gear and stuff like this, and you're some type of a guitar tech or luthier or just enthusiast at home, and you have a knack for these sort of things, you might know about the leveling of the frets, which is a procedure which aims to correct high frets which make your action very high and create a variety of problems, and they choke your bands, and you have fret buzz and stuff like this. And what people do is they go online usually and they buy these fancy schmancy tools. One of them is the radius block. I'll put one on the screen right now. The other one is a standing beam. Again, you have it on the screen right here. And what they do is basically the standing beam is a very, very flat, straight beam. It's a standing beam. It's at least if you have one of these and you're using it to level your frets, you should know that first of all you can't use just any ordinary, apparently flat beam. You have to have a very, very precise leveled beam, which is usually machined, into being like extremely, extremely precise when it comes to the level fluctuations. And people use that to sort of have like this, perfectly level surface that they try to enforce upon the surface of the frets. And other people like to do things, let's say, differently by preserving the so-called radius of the fretboard, and they get the radius blocks, which are essentially the same thing, is just that the inner surface is actually radiused to match the radius of your particular fretboard, and they use that thing to, again, just go back and forth. A lot of problems with those things. I don't plan on making a 1 hour long video, and just a couple of things that should serve as food for thought. First and foremost, whenever I see these super experienced luthiers and whatever teaching you how to do this crap. Everything they say in theory sounds perfect, but then when you see them executing it, I don't have any sanding beam or radius block, but I'll just demonstrate using my remote control here. They start doing this at a very slow pace, but then as they speed up, they kind of do this wacky trajectory, and you can see the fact that they almost do this thing. I mean, they just pay zero attention to the precision that they have to maintain while traversing the fretboard, because otherwise, if this thing goes even at a slight angle, the whole thing just gets completely ruined. You're superimposing a tremendous offset on your frets going into a different direction than it's supposed to, and you're messing the whole thing up. But apart from that, even if you're executing this whole thing perfectly, the reason why you should never actually do this, and mind you, I speak from experience because I also did things like this in the very beginning when I started, leveling frets and so on, and even when I was in the guitar store. Although during my days in the guitar store, I kind of started to shift towards what I'm about to discuss right here. But let's say when I first joined, I was still applying the traditional way. So the problem with the traditional way is that, well, first of all, you have to have like a sort of imagination exercise. Imagine like this is your fretboard right here, and without the necessity of having like a super close-up zooming thing going on, people just do a completely crazy thing by using the sanding block or the radius block, the sanding beam or radius block. Why? Because if you just imagine that, one fret is high, the others are, let's say, okay, or this fret and this fret, they're high, but maybe they're high on the opposite sides of the fretboard. Maybe this one is high here, this one is high here, or maybe even on the same side, or who knows how many variations you have. But let's take one extreme example. Let's say your whole fretboard is pretty much okay, but one fret is causing some fret buzz. What people usually do is they go for this overall method because it keeps everything in check and keeps all frets leveled in a sort of collective group mode. What I mean by that is they have this feeling, this inner sensation that tells them, if you're coming along with this, huge straight block and you're just raking it against the frets, eventually, and this word eventually holds the key to why this is such a bad idea. Eventually, all of the frets will kind of converge towards having the same level. However, in the process of doing this, you are actually unnecessarily eating away material out of all the other frets that do not need this. If you don't understand why, and you think that just because you have, let's say, all of the frets at the same level and one is up, if you think that your hand is actually just cutting away from that fret until it reaches the same level as the other frets, you're sadly mistaken, and I would suggest some therapy or something, because that's not how physics works. when you use that sanding beam or that radius block, it will eventually rock against that fret, but it will always touch all of the other frets on which it tends to lean on, whether you're going forwards or backwards. So if you don't believe me, just do what everyone does, when you're marking away your frets with the Sharpie at the beginning, just to see the profile of what is up and what is down and what's level and whatever. Because it's funny, I mean, everyone does that, but they fail to see the other telltales that this method of using the Sharpie is benefiting them with. So they fail to see that although they have one or two frets or whatever that are causing problems, when they first start raking, yes, they do see that the high frets start having the Sharpie immediately go away, while the low frets still have the Sharpie intact or almost intact. But do this a couple of times and you'll see that you're starting to scrape against the frets that do not actually need any correction, which is something very, very, very bad to do. And this only accentuates with the variety of problems that you can have. I mean, I just gave you one example, but again, you can have a variety of combinations. Maybe something is off on one side, then something is off on this side. Maybe the neck has some twist that is not correctable. Maybe you have, again, a variety of problems. So when you start applying this brute force method that basically says, I don't care what the neck has in terms of problems, I'll just keep on leveling until eventually all of them will be level. Yes, they will get leveled, but sometimes you might find out that they get leveled only at the point where there's almost nothing left out of those frets, which is a pity because it's a natural side effect of stupidity when you're not really smart enough to realize what you're doing wrong, and you just like to apply a method for the sake of applying that method because you value your methods more than critical and analytic thinking. So when you want to correct this, you always want to try to perform what you would probably call a manual pluck. Now, for those of you who don't know what plucking is for guitars and for guitar frets, for fret leveling, go out there, Google Plek, Plek, Plek machines. You can watch a variety of videos on YouTube, and you can see what that thing does. Now, granted, I did not know about plucking machines when I started changing my perspective on how things should be done, but after I saw that this thing actually was a thing and it existed, it made a lot more, it made much more sense to just skip the 1 hour long explanation whenever I was talking to people, and just tell them, you know what, just try to pluck your guitar even though you don't have a plucking machine. So back to what you should do is you should basically draw or investigate the profile of your fretboard, see exactly what's in need of correction, and only work on that locally. What I mean by that is get yourself a rocker. Again, I don't have any fret rocker handy at the moment. They're in the other room, but imagine this is the rocker. You know the deal. Just grab each, you know, each succession of 3 frets and just rock the fret rocker back and forth. If it rocks, it means that the middle fret is higher. If not, maybe it doesn't, but the middle fret might be lower. So you need to see this with the other pair of frets and eventually get to like a an understanding of what's happening. So that's why you have to do this for each group of 3 frets, and just find out the very detailed profile of your fretboard and the frets that are on the fretboard, what needs to be done. Usually what I do is I always mask the fretboard when I'm leveling, and I showed you in one of my previous videos that since I have masking tape when I'm working, I also use this masking tape as a drawing board. So what I usually do is I mark like a very fine, detailed sort of relief or whatever diagram of the levels that need to be adjusted for each fret, and I measure tons of times. I go back and forth. I adjust each fret locally with the file, with a diamond file, and after each such pass, I measure again, and then I do it again, and I find new spots. Why? Not because I did a crappy job with the first pass, but like I said, you might have a situation where let's say you have 1 or 2 very high frets, but around those frets there are also a lot of imperfections. But until you manage to kind of trim down on those biggest level differences, you will not be able to expose the other problems. So only by correcting them one by one, pass by pass, will you be able to slowly but surely arrive to a perfect fret level without taking any material out of the frets other than what's absolutely necessary. So back to our extreme example, when you just have 1 fret, just deal with that fucking fret. Worst case scenario, like I said, maybe this fret is so high that it masks some neighboring problems, but rest assured, like when you start working on this, you will expose maybe a problem with this, and these in turn maybe they will expose a problem with this and this. But guess what? As you'll be doing this, no matter how many problems you're exposing or you're starting to expose, with each neighboring problem, the whole, the severity of the issue goes down by a lot. So you will never, if you're just talking about, again, one fret on the entire fretboard, just for an extreme example, but this is the case for many guitars out there. Maybe once you deal with this fret, you'll uncover 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 adjacent problems, but that's gonna be it. So you'll have like one major touch up with a few more passes on 2 or 3 more frets, and that's gonna be it. Polish everything up and you're ready to go. The rest of the frets are perfectly conserved. So again, I don't want to explain in a lot of detail what the plucking thing is. You can Google that, you can YouTube that, but be sure to really understand the process and don't just go like a gorilla and get like a super flat leveling beam or sanding block and just ram it into the fucking guitar until everything is straight. It will be straight, but again, by the time it's all leveled up, your frets will be eaten away like never before. You'll probably go below half, depending on the the corrections that needed to be done. One extra thing that I forgot to mention when I told you that I love those super smart expert luthiers online that just show you how to do things. Obviously, you need to do this on a bench and with a perfectly flat neck. And I'm talking now about the truss rod adjustment. You don't want to have any back bow or front bow, none of that shit. When you do this, you have to be super light-handed. You cannot just go and apply a ton of pressure, because this pressure goes into the wood. The wood is very flexible, especially if you have your working bench set up in such a way that your neck is resting on one end here, and on the other end here, the middle will be suspended in midair. And a lot of people do this, although it's really not recommended. You should reinforce your neck in such a way that you have, as much as possible, the entire surface of the neck along its length supported by something, so that even if you do make a mistake and you apply slightly more pressure, it doesn't start to have a bow in it. But all of these gurus online, they show you how they do this, first of all, wobbly thing that I just told you about. I mean, they tell you in practice it should be perfectly going, like this, but then they kind of get bored and anxious, and they start going in different weird patterns. And one other thing they do is exactly this that I told you, and you can see it on video. They start leaning on the fucking thing, and you can see the neck just going like this. It's like a bed on which you're bouncing or fucking, or I don't know. And what that does is, obviously, it messes up the profile of the neck. You're no longer correcting what you should be correcting. You have completely false feedback of what the frets are doing and what the frets are not doing. And probably you'll end up with severe problems that cannot be corrected, because now you kind of scooped your frets around the middle portion of the fretboard. And you can always take material away, but you can never put material back unless you refret the whole fucking thing. So yeah, you have to be careful with these things. Don't just follow along to those videos that go online and they show you how to easily level your frets in 30 minutes or whatever. You have to be really skilled, and prior to this you have to have, in my opinion, a lot of experience with just doing things in general, working around the house, and not just the big and bulky things, but the fine precision things. So you have to think about this thing with an engineering mindset. You cannot just treat it as carpentry. You're not just creating some door frame for your bathroom, so anything goes as long as it's kind of straight, kind of okay, who cares. The guitar is a precision instrument, a very high precision instrument, so you have to treat it as such. So yeah, sparkly and glittery old t-shirt I used to wear, like, I don't know, 10 plus years ago, and I found it while going through my clothes for the winter. So I decided to have it on video. Why not? So yeah, New Year started, and I'm back with one of my first videos in which I'm trying to make myself unpopular again. So you probably love this by now, right? But hey, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And yeah, in one of the next videos, I'll tell you exactly why you should not work on your guitar like this, flat on the bench, for any other setups. Apart from, obviously, if you're doing some really hard core work like fret leveling or refretting, stuff like this. But for action, intonation, all of those easy things, it's a major no-no. You have no idea why, or probably you do. But anyway, I need to make that video because I've seen way too many people teach you this kind of crap, and they're like not big names in the industry, they're like the biggest names in the industry, and they're just retarded. I'm sorry, I don't have to be a bigger name in the industry to have a voice. I know what I know what I'm talking about, so they can shove it. So I need to make that video as well. It's on my mind and it won't let me sleep. So yeah, that's why in the next video you'll see me wearing the same t-shirt, because yeah, not because I'm a hobo, which I kind of am, but yeah, I need to make this as soon as I finish with this video right here, right now. So be sure to like, dislike. If you dislike, do it twice. Comments, subscribe, and let me know what you want to see on this channel, or what you don't want to see on this channel no more. Pretty much, if you say you don't want to see something, I'll probably do it twice as much. But yeah, sorry, I'm just wired that way, like a 3-year-old. So yeah, guess you'll just have to put up with me, put up with me. Yeah, kind of getting late. See ya.